Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Authorities in Otero County, Colorado say that a dramatic vehicle chase ended with the death of a 31-year-old suspect last week after he stole a police cruiser while detained and ended up crashing during a pursuit. According to reports, the incident began sometime around 11 a.m. on June 20th, when deputies responded to a report of shots fired in Otero County. The suspect, later identified as 31-year-old Anthony Alfonso Sanchez III, ended up fleeing the scene, prompting deputies to call for backup from Colorado State Patrol. With the extra help, police were able to pull off a successful pit maneuver on Highway 50, bringing Sanchez's vehicle to a stop, though not before the 31-year-old allegedly caused several accidents on the highway. When he was arrested, a loaded gun was also reportedly found in his car. After being placed in handcuffs, Sanchez was put in the back of a marked Colorado State Patrol cruiser where he was left alone while officers worked to secure the scene. However, it was during this time that the 31-year-old was able to slip his handcuffs underneath his legs, bringing his hands in front of his body, after which he climbed into the driver's seat of the cruiser and drove away. Video footage released this week shows Sanchez doing all of this, with cameras in the vehicle also capturing his second car chase with police. Unfortunately, this one would have far more serious consequences for the 31-year-old. Sanchez continued to race down Highway 50 into Bent County, where officers tried multiple times to deploy stop sticks on the cruiser. When this eventually worked, he lost control of the vehicle, sending him crashing into a tractor trailer. Though the 31-year-old was conscious after the initial impact, he suffered a severe head injury, and police say he later died at a hospital. No one else was hurt as a result of the incident. At the time of this recording, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation say that they are looking into the case. Representatives from the United States Attorney's Office for the Central District of California say that a 35-year-old woman has been sentenced to federal prison time this week after she was convicted in connection with a strange and terrifying incident that took place at a Los Angeles County bank nearly 2 years ago. According to reports, the incident unfolded on September 20th, 2021, when the woman, 35-year-old Tarani Millett, walked into a Bank of America branch in the city of Torrance. After standing in line for a bit, she went to speak with the bank's manager, demanding that they get another teller to help her because she had been waiting for too long. When the manager informed Millett that there were no other employees available, she reportedly became irate, yelling, quote, "I'm going to blow this bitch up," and running outside. The bank manager immediately called 911, though before help could arrive, Millett returned, throwing a lit Molotov cocktail inside the building, which started a fire in the middle of the floor. Luckily, a customer was able to extinguish the flames before they got out of hand, though by the time police got to the scene, Millett had fled. On her way to her vehicle, she reportedly threatened another customer, throwing a glass bottle at their truck, which caused minor damage. While police were able to identify Millett thanks to the bank's CCTV footage, it would be roughly another 2 months before they were able to capture her. She was finally taken into custody in December of 2021, following another dramatic incident in which the 35-year-old led law enforcement in Georgia on a high-speed chase in a stolen U-Haul van. The chase ended in a crash, which caused Millett to be hospitalized. A search of the vehicle afterwards revealed more materials for making Molotov cocktails, including glass bottles with tissue paper inserted in them, a can of lighter fluid, and a 5-gallon can of gasoline. Miller pleaded guilty to unlawful possession of a firearm and destructive device in March, and this week was sentenced to 24 months in federal prison. Authorities in Ventura County, California say that a local pizzeria employee was left extremely shaken this week after he was attacked out of nowhere by a man who allegedly tried to set him on fire. According to reports, the situation began at around 1:45 p.m. on June 25th, when the victim, who has not been identified by name, was in the prep kitchen at Allegro Pizza in the city of Thousand Oaks. The restaurant wasn't open yet, and the employee was busy getting ingredients prepared for later that day, when suddenly a man walked in through the back door with a small dog. He had the dog's leash in one hand and was carrying a container and a lighter in the other. The employee didn't notice the man, later identified as 61-year-old Robert Haight, until he was splashed with a liquid in the back. At first, he assumed the liquid was water and that someone was playing a prank on him. However, moments later, he recognized the unmistakable smell of fumes coming from his clothing. He had been doused with lighter fluid. When he turned around, Haight had picked up a knife and was walking towards him with it, while also igniting the lighter. The employee started walking away from Haight, but was followed, prompting the employee to make a run for it outside. When he got out into the parking lot, he began yelling for help. A Good Samaritan who overheard the commotion quickly intervened and was also allegedly doused with lighter fluid by Haight. That's when he apparently punched him in the head, momentarily knocking the 61-year-old out. Police soon arrived at the scene, and Haight was placed under arrest. He is now facing charges of attempted murder, use of a deadly weapon, and assault with caustic chemicals. While no official motive behind the crime has been released at the time of this recording, some reports state that Haight may have been suffering from some sort of mental health episode at the time. A witness to the incident told media in an interview that the 61-year-old was saying that people were trying to kill him. Authorities in Dekalb County, Alabama released a tragic update in the case of a missing 39-year-old woman this week, announcing that her remains had been recovered after nearly 2 years, and that 2 other women are now facing capital murder charges in connection with her death. According to reports, 39-year-old Mary Beth Isbell was reported missing by her ex-husband in late December of 2021, when she failed to wish their teenage son a Merry Christmas. When police launched an investigation, they collected evidence from searches of Beth's car and home, but could not find her anywhere. Disturbingly, they were able to determine that she hadn't been seen for over a month before her disappearance was reported. Few updates were provided about the case until this week, when DeKalb County investigators made a somber announcement. Sadly, Beth's remains had been recovered by a search team at Little River Canyon National Preserve, near the city of Fort Payne. The discovery was made following a tip that authorities reportedly received on June 20th, which they had determined was credible. Beth's remains were positively identified on June 30th, on what would have been her 39th birthday. At the same time as this tragic update was given, police also announced that 2 women had been arrested in connection with the case. The women, Loretta K. Carr and Jessie Eden Kelly, are both now facing capital murder charges. Carr was reportedly arrested in DeKalb County, while Kelly was arrested in Pennsylvania. While few details have been provided about the circumstances surrounding Beth's alleged murder, the public were provided with 2 major details by investigators. They claimed that the 2 suspects kidnapped Beth and that she was later thrown from a cliff to her death in the preserve where her remains were found. At the time of this recording, both Carr and Kelly remain in custody. Authorities in Indianapolis, Indiana say that a man is facing the possibility of a lengthy prison sentence following a bizarre incident in which he allegedly robbed a woman at gunpoint, then tried to slide into her DMs. According to reports, the incident took place back on May 8th when the victim, Amber Baron, got back to her home on the city's near southeast side after a night of delivering pizzas. It was around 4 a.m, and Amber went inside quickly to feed her pets, but came back out momentarily to check her mailbox. It was then that she was approached by an unknown man who was riding a bicycle. The man asked Amber if she lived at the house, immediately unnerving her. She replied that she did, but lied, saying that her boyfriend was home and just inside. That's when the man allegedly pulled out a handgun from the pocket of his hoodie and pointed it at her chest. The man explained that he had planned to rob Amber's house and wanted her to let him inside. Knowing there was no way she could let that happen, Amber replied that she didn't have anything of value in there, but that the man could have the roughly $100 in tip money she had just made it work. The man agreed, walking her to her car at gunpoint to retrieve the money. That's when things took a strange turn. Once the man had the money in his possession, he started asking more questions about whether Amber really had a boyfriend. When she reiterated that she did, he asked if he treated her right, then asked if they could be Facebook friends. He instructed her to pull out her phone and navigated her to his profile, where he gave her his name, Damian Boyce. He then hopped on his bicycle and took off. Shaken by the whole ordeal, Amber didn't immediately call police, worried because Boyce knew where she lived and who she was. However, it didn't take long for things to get even stranger. Roughly 3 hours after the robbery, Boyce apparently started sending Amber direct messages over Facebook, saying that he was going to pay her back and asking her if she wanted to hang out. One message reportedly said, quote, "Damn, you was too pretty to rob." Understandably, the whole armed robbery thing didn't really put Amber in the mood for romance, so she contacted police later that day. After a month-long investigation, Boyce was arrested and charged with armed robbery and illegally carrying a handgun. If convicted, he's looking at up to 17 years in prison. The 31-year-old is also apparently facing charges for a separate armed robbery in which he allegedly shot 2 people and hit another in the head with a brick. Authorities in Blue Earth County, Minnesota say that they recently arrested a 19-year-old man on a number of charges following a bizarre case in which he allegedly attacked several people with a bag of candy. According to reports, the incident took place on the afternoon of June 23rd at a restaurant in the city of Mankato. It's unclear how exactly the situation started, though what we do know is that at some point the suspect, later identified as 19-year-old Tristan Stetina, caused quite the scene. During the middle of an outburst, he allegedly began pelting customers and employees inside the restaurant with Skittles, arguably giving a whole new meaning to the slogan, "Taste the Rainbow." Although I suppose in this case it was more like, "Taste the rainbow or else." Anyway, when police arrived at the scene, there was candy all over the floor and an empty bag of Skittles in the restaurant's trash. Stetina had fled by this point, though he wasn't all that hard to find thanks to witnesses' descriptions of his face tattoos. Officers apparently knew who they were talking about almost immediately, as they had reportedly had run-ins with him before. When authorities caught up with the 19-year-old, he wasn't willing to come quietly and allegedly used his leg to try and trip one of the officers, placing him under arrest in order to escape. I guess he was out of fruit-flavored ammo by this point, so he had to improvise. In any case, this was unsuccessful and he was taken into custody. He is now facing charges including misdemeanor assault, disorderly conduct, and resisting police, as well as drug charges from a previous incident. Authorities in Hardin County, Kentucky say that an argument between an active duty military couple turned deadly this week when the husband allegedly pulled out a gun and shot his wife several times in their home. According to reports, June 26th was supposed to be a day of fun and relaxation for the victim, 32-year-old Ashley Henning. She was celebrating her birthday and had thrown a party, inviting friends, family, and neighbors. However, later that evening, things took a terrifying turn when Ashley and her husband, 33-year-old Jordan Harding, got into a heated argument. Multiple people apparently tried to intervene and calm the situation, but were unsuccessful, with neighbors finally deciding the best course of action was to at least remove the couple's children from the situation. This turned out to be an incredibly prescient move, as just moments after leaving the home, they heard multiple gunshots. According to witnesses, Harding shot his wife Ashley several times in the torso before hurrying to his vehicle outside and driving away. It's unclear what prompted the deadly argument, though reports state there was plenty of alcohol at the party. Officers were called to the scene shortly before 10 p.m., though sadly Ashley was pronounced dead. Harding was arrested not long after, about a mile away. Quote, making numerous utterances apologizing for hurting his wife. He has now been charged with murder, domestic violence, which is punishable by 20 to 50 years in prison. Local media reports state that both Harding and Ashley were active-duty military service members at the time of the incident and were based at Fort Knox. Harding is a staff sergeant assigned to the 1st Army Division East, while Ashley was a soldier with U.S. Army Human Resources Command. Authorities in Middlesex County, Massachusetts say that a 41-year-old man has been arrested and is facing murder charges this week following the brutal killings of 3 elderly people inside their own home. According to reports, the incident began at around 10:15 a.m. on June 25th, when police were called by a friend of husband and wife 73-year-old Jill and 74-year-old Bruce DeMore. The friend had gone to the couple's home in Newton after they failed to show up for that morning's church service, where Jill and Bruce were supposed to renew their vows in celebration of their 50th wedding anniversary. Upon venturing inside, the friend made a gut-wrenching discovery. Jill, Bruce, and Jill's 97-year-old mother, Lucia Arpino, were all dead inside a single bedroom at the home. When officers arrived at the scene, they discovered that all 3 of the family members had been the victims of a brutal attack. Each had been beaten and stabbed, with Jill alone suffering about 30 wounds to her head, face, and neck. There were signs of forced entry into the residence, including broken glass and missing screens from the basement windows. While residents in the area were initially told to stay vigilant and keep their doors locked, the following day it was announced that an arrest had been made in the case. A bloody footprint had been matched to a local 41-year-old man named Christopher Ferguson. Ferguson was also captured on surveillance video in the neighborhood on the day of the crime, staggering around barefoot and with no shirt on. He was arrested at his home about a mile away from the crime scene and is now facing multiple charges including murder, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon causing serious bodily injury, and burglary. Though no official motive has been released behind the terrifying killings, police have so far said they believe the attacks were random and that Ferguson did not know the victims. It's further alleged that the 41-year-old may have been experiencing some kind of mental health episode at the time. He reportedly suffers from bipolar disorder, with a girlfriend telling media that he has been in a manic episode since February. He was apparently hospitalized for mental health issues in June, though was allegedly released against the wishes of his family several days before the murders. Friends and family members of the victims, meanwhile, are reportedly still trying to wrap their heads around the awful situation, especially the heartbreaking timing of it all, just before Jill and Bruce were set to celebrate their golden wedding anniversary. The loss has also come as a considerable blow to members of Jill and Bruce's church, where they were active in the community. At the time of this recording, Ferguson remains in custody. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.